everybody, it's Tayo.
And it's Sandra.
And this is Keeping It Different.
Keeping it different. We're talking about a really important topic this week. So can you tell me what the buzz is around unconscious bias, what it means, and why is it so important?
Well, thank you. It's very important because it affects how we hire, how we make decisions, how we view other people. Unconscious bias is a social stereotype that individuals make outside of the social consciousness. Now, to say that you're biased doesn't mean that you're a good or bad person, because if you have a brain, you have a bias. I particularly have a LeBron James bias, and I think he's the best player ever. And even though we might not be winning right now, it's not the case. But I digress. Scientists have estimated that human beings process about 40 out of the 11 million pieces of information that we receive every day. Yeah. So in order for us as humans to make decisions, we take mental shortcuts. The good thing is that it helps us keep us safe, and we make notes of good situations we should be in and bad situations we stay away from. But the bad thing is when it works against us in the workplace,
Exactly.
When it goes against us in hiring decisions, firing decisions, and promotion decisions. So Sandra and I are going to walk through ways to, one, address your biases and then combat these biases. So Sandra, what should we do about addressing our biases?
Sure. So one of the main reasons why it's so important for us to talk about this topic, like Tayo mentioned, is because it's affecting way too many people. And when you're talking about decisions that we make unconsciously that affect people's livelihoods, families, people depending on their income, this is why we really have to address it in the workforce, because it's affecting people's daily lives. Yeah. And this is a really big deal.
Yes.
So the first thing that is crucial in combating unconscious bias is addressing it and noticing that it exists. So step one, let's acknowledge it. We all have it, like Tayo mentioned. Like Tayo mentioned, we all have unconscious biases. So step one is recognizing that it exists and that it doesn't make you a bad or a good person, but that it makes you human, and that we just need to redirect how we actually are making decisions based on our unconscious biases.
Facts.
So one way to do that would be to take the implicit association test by Harvard. So you can go on there and check out your own biases. That is definitely something that we would encourage.
Yep.
And certainly after you've acknowledged that you have unconscious biases that we all do by nature of being human, and then not only do you recognize that you have them, but we also start refocusing the conversation towards what it actually means to have fair treatment for everyone. So then we go into some of the more concrete things that we can do. So for instance, if you're in a corporation, some of the really important things that you can do is assess what kind of employment cycles you currently have. So how are you vetting resumes, employment resumes? What kind of systems do you have in place currently to hire, to promote, to do mentorship programs? What kind of systems are in place to select your senior leadership team? So all of these are steps that need to be vetted within a company to make sure that there are no built-in unconscious biases that are keeping certain groups out of actually getting ahead and being promoted and getting to the senior leadership roles that we need more diversity in. So after the employment cycles have been vetted, some of the other things that can be done are actually do studies. So for instance, companies that do anonymous studies or surveys of their employees, current employees as well as ex-employees, to see what are the things that they find are unfair treatment within the company. So we want to understand, what do people feel is unfair within the company? And we also want to find out from ex-employees, would they recommend their friends to work at this institution? Would you say that you had fair treatment? And if not, then we want to take all of that information to address those problems. So we definitely want to survey, and we want to have an anonymous line or reporting line, and this is absolutely crucial. So we've acknowledged the problem, we've started refocusing the conversation, we have asked our employees what they feel and if they feel they're being fairly treated. So now what are some of the things that we can do?
Thanks, Sandra. And yes, that then is forming partnerships with educational and professional affinity groups.
Yes.
Doing this will give you more of an insight into what exactly it is serves their base. And the more you know about their base, the more you can be more inclusive in your environment, because you're actually addressing them the way they like to be addressed and not the way that you think they need to be addressed.
Yes.
So forming those partnerships is major key, as DJ Khaled will say. But as we wrap up here, I want to really hit on a few points. One of the first thing to do is to go structured. We've noticed as we go into organizations, having a structure or a criteria before you actually hire makes it easier for you to address your biases, so that you know what a successful candidate actually looks like. So if a successful candidate meets the criteria you have set beforehand, it doesn't matter what they look like or what they feel like, that then you're able to sort of de-bias yourself from that. Also, going through your resumes where you're eliminating the gender and some of those pronouns, those things help as well.
It is key to check. It is absolutely key to check the resumes and make sure that you're making decisions based on the quality of the person's abilities, their experience, versus assumptions being made by very minute things like names, genders, etc.
Absolutely. And then the other thing that you want to do is to measure results. You can't track, you can't actually have any successful D&I or diversity and inclusion metric if you don't know what you're tracking. So make sure you have surveys out there that go to understand and test out the mood of the company, whether it pertains to bias, diversity, inclusion, and then periodically address them and see if there's been progress. Check the ratio between your gender and your ratio. Check what the opinions are of previous employees, and make sure you're just tracking all these results and you're creating these benchmarks so that you can grade. I actually would recommend you actually have an A, B, C, D, F standard, so you can see if you're getting an A according to your criteria, or B, or an F. Another thing is to hold people accountable. That's the last thing I would say. This goes down from leadership, goes all the way from leadership all the way down to people on the entry level. You've got to make sure people are being held accountable for decisions that you've made. And honestly, we feel like we are obviously in this diverse and globalized world, and as we can see in the political landscape and in the educational landscape, there seems to be this increasing division of what we don't understand. And the vision is drawn essentially along those lines that if I don't understand you, then you must be bad, right? But that doesn't actually make for a productive environment, and that doesn't allow us to embrace the competitive advantage that is diversity. So there you go. We are all biased. I'm biased. She's biased. And we hope that we've given you some key tips on ways to address your unconscious bias. Other than that, if you have any more questions for us on this topic, or you feel like we can go into more in-depth with you, we'll be more than happy to address those in the links here below or our social handles. And we love you all. Until next week,
keep it different and make sure to always
use your difference to make a difference. Boom!